Welcome to the Map It Forward podcast, friends. Today's episode of the Daily Coffee Pro is brought to you by Elixir Specialty Coffee. Click on the link below and head to the elixirspecialtycoffee.com website and enter code THANKYOU2019 to get free shipping on all your Elixir Trios that you order before Thanksgiving. That website again, elixirspecialtycoffee.com, and you'll get all your Elixir Trios, that's your Elixir 3-packs, shipped across the US, as many of them as you want, with free shipping. So head there now. Today on the Daily Coffee Pro, we are talking about an important subject that I've been working with recent clients of mine, and it keeps popping up. So I thought that I'd talk about it on the podcast, and it is the subject of what should I be charging for my roasted coffee? Now, this is a really interesting question because of all the workshops that I've run in the past, it's the one question that keeps coming up whenever there's a roasters workshop. And so the idea that people are asking other people what they should be charging for their coffee is indicative of the fact that they are kind of lost as to where they should be basing their decision making. So the very best place to start when somebody asks me, what should I be charging for my roasted coffee, is to ask them a question. What does it cost you to produce a pound of roasted coffee? And until you understand what the actual per pound cost is over the scope of, let's say, a month or a year, then you won't have any chance at being able to understand what the right answer to that question is. And the way that you get there is by performing what is called a cost breakdown analysis. Now, anyone who's a client of mine, I create a spreadsheet with them and we work through understanding the exact cost per pound from a cost of goods perspective as well as a fixed cost perspective. So let's talk about that a little bit more. When you're trying to understand how much a pound of coffee is going to cost you to produce, particularly before you open the business, it's going to have to be founded on estimates for some time, purely because you don't really have any hard numbers on what your actual fixed operating costs will eventually turn out to be. Everybody that's opened a business will tell you that there are hidden costs that you never knew that you're always going to end up encountering running a business. So we approach this in two steps. We look at what our cost of goods are. So that's the cost of all the things that you can see in the product in front of you. If this is a 5-pound bag of coffee, everything that you can see in that product, what did it cost you to put all those pieces together? So that's the landed price for green coffee. And remember, it's green coffee, that there's a difference in the amount of green coffee that's required to the amount of roasted coffee you'll end up with. So be sure to account for that. So you've got the green coffee, you've got the bag, you've got any stickers, you've got the roaster's labor. Some people include that in a cost of goods, some people don't. When I do a cost breakdown analysis, I always include the cost of the labor that goes directly into that product. So not the support staff, not the bookkeeping or the administration or any of that, just the direct labor costs associated with producing that particular product. So in this situation, that would be the roaster. You're going to also include any of the packaging, the direct packaging that's associated with what you will use to deliver that product to the person who's going to be buying it. So if you're looking at a bag of coffee, a 12-ounce bag of coffee that you're going to sell as a roaster through a subscription service that is retail online, you would include the packaging that goes into that as well. That's the cost of goods. Now, that's not what it's going to cost you to create to understand what the expenses are for that product. You've, aside from that, got fixed costs, and they happen every month mostly, and they are things like rent, insurance, wages, gas, electricity, water, all of these things that you pay, whether you sell 1 pound of coffee, 1,000 pounds of coffee, 10,000 pounds of coffee, or zero coffee. So from the day that you open the doors, and sometimes before, you will be required to pay these fixed costs. What you want to do is you want to understand what your cost of goods are, plus what your fixed costs are, bring it to the per pound amount, and then you'll be able to get an understanding of what it costs you per pound in a month to create to get an understanding of what it's costing you to make a bag of coffee. Some of you out there might be thinking, well, how do I actually do this before I even have started roasting a bag of coffee? So what I recommend to my clients is that we calculate the maximum amount, the maximum capacity that they can roast comfortably in the roasting facility that they have on the current roasting equipment that they've got. So if we were to look at 8 hours a day for roasting, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, that's what they're intending at running their roaster at. Let's assume that a couple of hours of that is taken away for packaging and etc., etc. So you'll be actually roasting coffee for, let's say, 6 hours of that day, once you take into account lunch and everything. And we want to be conservative with these estimates. So if we look at 6 hours a day, 5 days a week that your roaster is in operation, depending on the size of your roasting machine, what's the quantity of coffee that you're going to be able to produce in a month? And when you do this calculation, I want you to take a look at, also, there are some things that you need to remember. You're not going to be roasting every single week of every single month. Let's assume that you're taking 2 weeks off per month. 2 weeks off per year. So what you want to do is figure out what's your weekly number, times it by however many weeks you're going to be in operation this year. Let's say 50 out of 52, and then divide that by 12. That will give you your per month projected maximum sales. You want to take that number and divide it by the number of pounds that you're going to be, by the total amount of expenses that you've got for that month that you've estimated out in your spreadsheet. And that should give you the fixed costs per pound as an estimate. That will give you the number that you need to then attach that number as an estimate to your cost of goods sold, which you can, that's not so much of an estimate because you've costed everything out. You've called the suppliers, you know what it's going to cost for the coffee bags, you know what it's going to cost for the stickers, etc., etc. You're going to compile that information into a spreadsheet, and that will show you what your costs are. And then you can then extrapolate that out to, this is what a 5 pound bag of coffee is going to cost me as an estimate if I'm operating at maximum capacity. You will adjust the fixed cost number based on what capacity you're at. If you're running at half capacity, then double the fixed costs number. If you're running at full capacity, you just keep it at what it is. And the further you get into your business, the more precise these numbers can be. The clients that I've been working with have one client that I'm just so extremely proud of. it's a partnership, and one of the owners has had a roastery before that didn't quite work out. They had to close that roastery. We've now approached it from the perspective of basing all their decisions on spreadsheets and on doing cost breakdown analysis, on understanding what the values are and buying philosophies, etc., and already through the roof with regards to confidence. So it's been super helpful because now they understand what the fixed costs are and they understand what the cost of goods are per pound or per product, whether it's a 5-pound bag or a smaller variation of that. They can go and base the decisions that they're going to make on what pricing they will allocate based on solid numbers. They can compare what other people are offering in the market that they're looking to compete in, and they can come up with an understanding of whether they price it at X dollars. They know whether they're going to be profitable or not. They know their upper and their lower limits that keep them profitable based on the capacity that they're working at in their roastery. If this is something that has been troubling you or you want to explore it further, feel free to hit me up through the website or email lee@mapitforward.org and we can talk about this further. Otherwise, I hope this has been helpful. The answer to the question, how much should I be charging for my roasted coffee, cannot be answered until you understand what it costs you to produce a pound of coffee. Peace, love, and peanut butter, friends. Pass this information on. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day.